So, Blaugrana are through to the quarterfinals, ladies and gentlemen. Woo! Blaugrana are through to the quarterfinals. Yes, you heard me. So, Barcelona won by 3-1 on the night, winning 4-2 on aggregate. And it was actually Robert Lewandowski who got like the crucial insurance goal, which sent the youthful Barcelona into the Champions League quarterfinals. It was actually goals from Fermin Lopez, João Cancelo, as well as Robert Lewandowski, which helped Barcelona to a 3-1 victory over Napoli on the night, which meant that Blaugrana won by 4-2 aggregate scoreline. And for Xavi Hernandez's side, Amir Rahmani, was the man who actually got a goal, the consolation goal for the Italian side on the night. Remember the Napoli chairman promised the Napoli players that if they beat Barcelona, they will get $10 million each. We'll get into that later on. But yeah, Robert Lewandowski, Barcelona progressed to the quarterfinals of the UEFA Champions League, with a decent 3-1 victory at home over Napoli to secure a 4-2 aggregate win. So it was like two early goals in the game, from Fermin Lopez as well as João Cancelo, which put Xavi Hernandez's side in total control. But, Barcelona had to survive a scare against the Italian champions in the middle part of the match. So it was actually Amir Rahmani, who actually pulled one back before the break, as well as, Jesper Lindstrom missed the target with a header from point-blank range late in the game that would have leveled the tie. Instead, Robert Lewandowski finished off a fine move to actually seal the victory for Blaugrana, and neither side has been able to mount the defense of their domestic crowns this season, but it is Barcelona who can still dream of ending their European campaign on a high. Unlikely though, but yeah. And you look at the fact that how Barcelona actually held off the fight back from the Italian giants, the Italian champions, Napoli. Barcelona started very brightly, reflecting their improved form since Xavi announced his decision to leave the club at the end of the season. They came into the game unbeaten in, 8 since the midfield legend ended any debate about his long-term future as the coach. And picking a team, which is actually packed with youngsters. It was actually Lorbes as well as Lamine Yamal to the fore from the outset. While Pau, Kubarsi, aged just 17, and Tusk with marking Victor Osimhen took the job with gusto. Kubarsi's long pass almost brought Lopez to the opener. He did not have to wait long, to actually finish netting with the low finish that seemed to send Barca's confidence into the overdrive. Within a couple of minutes, they had doubled their lead. Rafinha hit the post with his weak right foot, and then Cancelo was there to actually strut, the rebound to actually fire Blaugrana in front with a healthy 2-goal lead. Napoli actually looked very vulnerable, all shrugs and they bowed heads, but they did find a response, just when Barcelona, seemed to have actually taken the tie, from them, a slick move, it was actually a sleek move from Napoli, down the right, which actually found the finish it deserved from Rahmani, converting neatly with his left foot. And, that altered the mood in an instant. And it was actually a fraught second half, for the home side as they were unable to retain possession of the ball. Napoli actually felt aggravated to be denied a penalty when Kubarsi appeared to actually make contact with, the Nigerian Osimhen inside the box. But the real moment of regret for Napoli will be Lindstrom's header. He was under little pressure when the cross came from the left and appeared to actually pick out his spot to see the ball drift wide of the near post. And guess what? The poll. Form is temporary, class is permanent. Robert Lewandowski. Yes, Robert Lewandowski made him pay. He made him to rule those chances. It was a beautiful goal too, reminiscent of the Barca at their best. Ilkay Gundogan's typically clever pass found the run of Sergio Roberto, and his unselfishness was rewarded as he found Lewandowski in the middle. The expert marksman did the rest, completed the job for Blaugrana to send him in the quarterfinals once again. So Barcelona have reached the quarterfinals of the Champions League for the first time since the 2019-20 season, with them also knocking out Napoli of the last 16 that season, 4-2 on aggregate. Barca have won all 4 of their games in the season's Champions League, the first time they've won their first 4 home matches of a campaign in the competition since the 2017-2018 season. And then Napoli have been eliminated in the last 16 stage of the Champions League in 4 of the 5 times they've reached this round. Robert Lewandowski has scored 13 goals in his last 13 knockout games in the Champions League. Since the start of the 2020-2021 season, João Cancelo is the only defender to register more than 10 goal involvements in this competition, which is basically 14, 5 goals, 9 assists. As well as Lamine Yamal, 16 years old, 243 days, and Pau Cubarsí, 17 years old, 50 days. Barcelona were the first side in the Uefa Champions League history to start 2 players aged 17 or below in a knockout game. Blaugrana making history. Blaugrana, o treinador, Arce, Barça, 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 zum, 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 zum. Yeah, and at the Emirates, Arsenal reached the Champions League quarterfinals for the first time in over a decade. Since 2010, after they beat FC Porto on a penalty shootout, following a night of tension at the Emirates Stadium. So the Gunners went into the second leg, of the last 16, a goal down, but they actually drew level when Leandro Trossard, put them ahead on the night, with basically 4 minutes to go before the interval, with a smooth finish following some brilliant work being done by, Captain Martin Odegaard. And that was basically his 12th goal of the season in all competitions for, Trossard. And it was actually a scrappy, fractious encounter, which failed to actually yield a winner, even after extra time. And it was actually Arsenal who held their nerve to go through to the last 8. And it was Odegaard, Kai Havertz, Bukayo Saka, and as I can remember, Declan Rice. Yeah, they were all on target for Arsenal, as David Raya, saved, from Wendell, as well as Galeno to actually seal victory for Mikel Arteta's side, amid scenes of, some wild celebration. Yes, congratulations to the Gunners, as they did pass, the Porto test, and Arsenal only trailed to Galanino's last grasp, goal from just the first game in Portugal, but it quickly became clear that they would need to pass a stern test of character, temperament and patience against Sergio, Conceição's streetwise experienced team. Porto, defensively marshaled and organized by the evergreen 41-year-old Pepe, never allowed Arsenal to play with their usual fluency, and we actually saw that Trossard's goal, was actually created after some superb footwork and a pass of precision from Odegaard. It was actually a rare moment of weakness from the visitors' defense, and Arsenal probed, but Porto still posed a threat. We saw Raya, saving well from Evanilson, as well as Francesco, Conceição again. And Odegaard, thought he had settled Arsenal's nerves and, put them through, without the need for extra time with a second half strike. However, it was actually ruled out when, Havertz was adjudged to have pulled back Pepe. And the anxiety and the anger even, reached the technical area with Porto coach, Conceição, an agitated and animated figure throughout, and it threatened to actually boil over with frustration after their fate was sealed by Raya's flying save in a chaotic conclusion. And basically at the end of a nervous night, it was actually Arsenal who was celebrating with Arteta, finally ending, his European curse at home, having managed 5 Europa League ties at the Emirates Stadium without winning any. And it was also, it felt like a psychological barrier, which, had been crossed by the Gunners after losing at the last 16 in each of their last, 7 appearances in the Champions League. And having reached the last 8, Arsenal might just feel like they've learned enough from this tough experience to actually take, their journey deeper into the competition. Whilst the Gunners now set up a dream season finale, Arsenal have had, the ideal few days, breaking that barrier into the last 8 of the Europe's, elite competition, while also taking their place at the top of the league table. Their dramatic victory over Brentford and the draw between their 2 closest challengers, Liverpool and Manchester City at Anfield on Sunday, basically implies that, they top the league on goal difference only. So, like I said, Arsenal fans shouldn't be in celebratory mode yet. They shouldn't get overexcited. And it actually means that, Arsenal have that feeling of momentum, to carry forward, to carry forward into the final stages of the season, fighting both in the domestic and European competition. And Arsenal's next game is, a mammoth clash with Premier League champions Manchester City at the Etihad Stadium on the 31st of March. And Arteta, now has the time to take a breath and regather his forces in a position of real strength. Right now, hopefully the Gunners, their run won't just end here, due to the fact that, look, reaching the quarterfinals after like 10 years, over 10 years, is a massive thing. It's big, because you remember right now, Barcelona also have reached the quarterfinals for the first time in a couple of seasons. So we'll actually see how far, Arsenal can go in the Champions League competition this season. So, in the other Champions League, the remaining Champions League round of 16 second leg ties, we saw a tie between Atletico Madrid taking on last season's finalist Inter Milan at the Wanda Metropolitano, and then the other clash was between Borussia Dortmund taking on PSV, at Signal Iduna Park in Dortmund, Germany, right? So we'll start with the clash between Atletico Madrid as well as Inter Milan. So, coming into the second leg of this particular round of 16 tie was the fact that Inter were obviously in the ascendancy due to the fact that they were able to clinch a 1-0 victory at San Siro, in the first leg. And it was actually Marko Arnautovic that got the winning goal. But unfortunately, he was, however, unpleasant in this particular game. Unpresent, I meant to say. He was not present in this particular game due to the fact that he suffered a minor injury which ruled him out of this particular encounter. Although you would normally assume that it wouldn't really affect Inter Milan that much, and it didn't, because you thought that Inter Milan had run away with this tie. That they've put the tie to bed. Now that they scored the first goal, they drew first blood in this particular encounter. But Atletico Madrid pulled off an unlikely comeback in this particular encounter. But the home crowd cheered them on, and I think that's what really got them up their feet. And as for Antoine Griezmann, he has now scored 6 goals in this season's UEFA Champions League, and no player has actually got more goals than the Frenchman, Antoine Griezmann. So, Atletico Madrid, they dramatically beat Inter Milan on penalties to reach the Champions League quarterfinals and eliminate last season's runners-up. So, it actually finished 2-2 on aggregate at the end of extra time after Inter had thrown, away a 2-goal advantage, So, that's why I say Atletico Madrid pulled off an emphatic, unlikely comeback. And it was the Atletico Madrid goalkeeper Jan Oblak who was then the hero, saving penalties from former Arsenal and Manchester United winger Alexis Sanchez and David Klaassen, before Inter Milan's captain Lautaro Martinez blasted his spot kick over as the Spanish side advanced in a thrilling, style. The draw for the quarterfinals takes place today, on Friday at 11 a.m. 15 March, with Atletico's potential opponents being Arsenal perhaps, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Manchester City, Paris Saint-Germain, Real Madrid and Borussia Dortmund, who beat PSV Eindhoven in Wednesday's other tie. So 2 Champions League shootouts in 2 days, right? So we saw Inter Milan, who lost 1-0 to Manchester City in the final last season, went in first in the shootout, but Oblak saved, the first 3 kicks he faced. Atletico Saul Niguez, also missed with Jan Sommer blocking his effort. However, Memphis Depay, Rodrigo Riquelme, as well as Angel Correa all converted their penalties to take Atletico Madrid into the last 8 and complete the superb recovery. However, the Serie A leaders, Inter Milan, 1-0. They were 1-0 victors in the first leg in Italy, and they looked to be cruising through when they doubled their overall advantage on Wednesday, and it was thanks to Federico De Marco's first, time finish, following Nicolo Barella's pullback on the left-hand side. And you would think that, perhaps the game is set, match set and done, the tie, because you would assume that Inter Milan from this particular moment in time, they've got a healthy 2-goal advantage. All they can just do is to manage proceedings, manage the game, and protect this lead. But remember, when you're playing away from home, especially against a club like Atletico Madrid, it's always going to be very difficult. You have to understand the fact that, this is a team that can really compete. They've shown over the years that they can compete. They made it to the final in the 2014. They were just unlucky not to win that one. They also made it again to the final in 2016, losing on penalty shootout to Real Madrid. So, it tells you that this team has really been built, and Diego Simeone has done amazing things with this team, So, it was actually DeMarco's first goal in the Champions League for Inter Milan this season. And Atletico Madrid pulled the goal back just 2 minutes later, drawing level on the night. And, it was Koke's pass, which was not cleared. And then Benjamin, Pavard sliced his clearance, and Antoine Griezmann. However, the Frenchman, his French compatriot was there, to actually react the quickest and give his side a glimmer of hope, of a memorable fight back. From this particular moment in time, you didn't really fancy the fact that Atletico would come back into the game. But yeah, there was a bit of glimmer of hope. There was a glimmer of hope, because from that particular moment in time, it was now anyone's game, to say the least. It was anyone's game, and it was a matter of whoever scores the next goal, whether it's Inter or, Atletico Madrid. It's now going to be a situation whereby, okay, whoever scores the next goal now is going to be very crucial. Whoever scores the next goal might be well on their way to, emerge into the next round, because Atletico Madrid, you could tell that if they were to score the next goal, it will give them more confidence to go on to win. And it was actually through their substitute, Memphis Depay, who hit the inside of the post for Atletico as they looked, to get the goal that they needed. And however, eventually it came soon. Just after, Depay's low angle shot in the 87th minute went into the bottom corner, to the delight of the passionate home crowd. And, another Atletico Madrid substitute, Riquelme, had a glorious chance to win the tie, but he blazed his effort over in the 3rd minute of injury time as the match went into extra time. And with neither side, able to find a decisive goal before the drama of penalties. And before this week, there had been no penalty shootout in the Champions League since the 2016 final, when Real Madrid beat Atletico Madrid to lift the trophy. And again, now that there's been a shootout, there've been 2 penalty shootouts in a space of 2 days, following Arsenal defeating Porto in similar fashion at the Emirates Stadium on Tuesday. So it was actually the home teams. So it's like when you go through to penalty shootouts in the Champions League, in this knockout, ties, you just have to make sure that you are the home team, because if you are the home team, you will have the confidence to actually take those sport kicks and convert them. That's what we saw with Arsenal and Atletico Madrid, because Atletico Madrid, only one player missed, which was Saul Niguez. And it was actually Inter Milan's fault once again, because Inter Milan were very wasteful. They were very wasteful. And, they were punished, because now they've lost. This is their first defeat in this calendar year, 2024. So, Diego Simeone's, Atletico Madrid are 4th in La Liga, 14 points behind Real Madrid. And, they were eliminated by Athletic Bilbao in the semi-finals of the Copa del Rey. So, they've never really won a European Cup or a Champions League. They lost in the final in 1974, 2014, as well as 2016. But, they kept their hopes alive of actually fulfilling that dream of bringing the Uefa Champions League title to, the Wanda Metropolitano, as they became the first side to defeat Inter Milan, in 2024. The Italians, on the other hand, they've had a great season, They've really had a phenomenal season, led by, coach Simone Inzaghi, who, they've been very superb. They've been in superb form. And they are basically 16 points clear at the top of the Serie A table, as they actually look to become, domestic champions for the 20th time. Whereas on that particular basis, with the lead they've carved out, Inzaghi will know his side should have safely come through, this particular contest. And I also agree as well, because, not only did Inter Milan, go out after holding a 2-0 advantage, but they twice had glorious opportunities to win the tie late on in 90 minutes. It was actually Marcus Thuram, Barella. They failed to convert chances when they faced with only Oblak to beat, and it really did prove costly, because now Atletico Madrid held their nerve, in the shootout to actually book their place in Friday's draw. So what's so surprising is the fact that, yes, Inter Milan had more of the ball, right? But they just didn't convert their chances, which cost them eventually. But on the other hand is that Atletico Madrid had more chances than Inter Milan. And yes, they took their chances, but, they should have won it in the death. Riquelme should have really converted that chance that he missed, in the death. And at least it didn't prove to be costly for Atletico Madrid, because that was a golden opportunity that was spurned by Riquelme in the final 3 minutes of added time. So let us just head straight to Signal Iduna Park in Dortmund, in the other game of the round of 16. So it was actually Borussia Dortmund that have reached the Champions League quarterfinals for the first time in 3 years, which was thanks to goals from Jadon Sancho, who's seemingly getting his form back, as well as Marco Reus against PSV Eindhoven. And as for Jadon Sancho, he now has got He now has got 4 goals. He's netted 4 times for Borussia Dortmund, and he's also got 3 assists in his last 7 Champions League home games for Borussia Dortmund. So Sancho has a great record, at home, playing in the Champions League for Borussia Dortmund. And Sancho's low driving shot from the edge of the area was the one that gave Dortmund the lead, just in the 3rd minute. And what a great goal it was, from the Manchester United lone knee. And it was Edin Terzic, side had, a second goal ruled out after Nicolas Farag, seemed to be offside in the build-up. And it was actually the substitute Marco Reus, who pounced on PSV's mistake deep into stoppage time to actually finish a 1-on-1 against goalkeeper Walter Benitez, and settle the tie. So it was pretty much straightforward. We knew that Atletico Madrid were going to win this game. And, Borussia Dortmund were going to win this game, because the Champions League is they have this, they've done so well in the Champions League before. They even reached the final in 1996. They reached the final even in 2013. However, they lost to their German rivals Bayern Munich. So, this is a team that you can tell has been building. They've been building a foundation. Last season they were just unlucky to lose to Chelsea. So when you look at this particular game, PSV had numerous opportunities to equalize. They did. Herving Lozano, was very wasteful in front of goal. Peter Bosz, side, who are 10 points clear at the top of the Eredivisie. They were just like Inter Milan. They were punished for squandering those opportunities. So Lozano, was brought on as a second half substitute, and he slashed wide from close range and shot straight at the home goalkeeper, Gregor Kobel. He also missed the target from the edge of the area. So it tells you a fact that, when you're so wasteful in front of goal, those opportunities, you will rue them eventually. Whether in football it's like that, you don't take your chances, you will rue them. And the best chance for PSV came a minute before Dortmund's, late second goal. It was actually Luc de Jong who got on the end of, a 1-2, but he leaned back and fired over from close range. And PSV's time in the Champions League has now come to a frustrating end, due to the fact of not being able to convert, due to the fact that they lack the clinical edge in front of goal. So, the home side as well, they could have been ahead even earlier in the contest, when Chelsea's lonely, Ian Maatsen, his fierce strike, was tipped over by Benitez before Sancho set the tone soon after his substitute Marco Reus, secured Dortmund's place in the last 8 with his late finish. So, yeah, with Marco Reus, form is temporary, class is permanent, and yeah, man, Sancho, again, he's rediscovering his form, and he has sparkled on an important night for Dortmund, because it was an important night for Borussia Dortmund. And yes, congratulations to Jadon Sancho for being the player of the match, receiving the man of the match award. And Sancho, remember, he rejoined Dortmund on loan in January, and he has scored his first league goal since returning in a 2-1 victory over Werder Bremen last weekend. And it was actually his 39th in the league, and meant he is now level with Tony Woodcock as the top English goal scorer in the Bundesliga history. And the England international followed that up, with, his first Champions League goal since November 2021 and was named player of the match for his efforts. So remember, he scored in a Manchester United jersey. His last, Champions League goal was in a Manchester United jersey. So Dortmund, will hope it's nothing too serious with the youngster beginning to actually, get back to the form that he showed during his first spell in Germany. And yeah, man, hopefully he can keep it up.